Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Just wondering, how much did you know about the Crowhurst story going into the film?
I didn't know anything.
Nothing? Okay.
No. So it was totally new.
Sure. How about you, Colin?
I knew nothing about Donald Crowhurst. I knew who Robin Knox Johnston was, but I didn't have. I was probably about, I think, 7 when this race was happening. So I didn't have much of a context for it. I knew he'd gone around the world. Sir Alec Rose, Francis Chichester. These were names that really resonate from that period of my childhood. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have details, and so I wasn't aware of the Crowhurst story.
Okay, sure. And then did you kind of take on your own research then when preparing for the role?
Oh, yes. There were a lot of tapes, weren't there? All the BBC tapes.
Audio tapes.
And audios that he taped.
Yes. I mean, there was a lot to get into. There were books, and there were a lot of recordings, and there's a brilliant documentary, Deep Water, which I think was in some ways the biggest inspiration of all. But then there was a question of, am I going to be able to look like I know what I'm doing on a boat? So I did. I went out and got lessons on this sort of little 2-man, and I did go out on my own on one of those little things in incredibly easy and clement conditions.
It looks like you underwent a physical transformation as well. What did that involve for you?
Well, I'm very glad you call it a transformation. Obviously,
I agree.
The effect I wanted.
Yeah.
It was a tricky one because, he had to be seen to lose some weight as the story went on and become, to show the ravages of the voyage. But we didn't have a great deal of time to effect the change because what was it, about an 8 or 10 week shoot or something. And also we weren't shooting entirely chronologically, so it's no good getting gaunt and then shooting the early scenes.
Sure.
So what I tried to do was, I did. By the time I was only doing the later scenes, I was starving myself a bit, but I just wore lots of extra layers under my jumper for the earlier scenes.
Sure.
Did you?
I did, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so you bulked up.
I tried. So I don't wear a kind of sort of an actual sort of formal suit for it or anything.
Right.
But I did. I just wore loads of vest and 2 shirts and just to try to create a bit of contrast.
Nice way of doing it.
Yeah.
Rachel, do you feel that there's a greater kind of weight on your shoulders when you're telling a true story like this?
Of course, yes. There is a greater weight, but because of the documentary and because there were some outtakes as well that the director showed us from the BBC, there was a lot of footage that I could watch of Claire being her public self, at least when she was being interviewed by journalists and reporters while Donald was out at sea. So I got a sense of her, at least her presentation of herself to the press. Of course, who she really was is as much of a mystery as any time one plays a character. So that was something I had to imagine. But I think I got a sense of her. But to answer your question, yes, it is a responsibility, particularly in a story like this, which ended in tragedy, and that she had to carry on with her children and raise her children without their father. It's a very fragile, very sad story.
Absolutely. And do you think then nowadays, when there's kind of a resurgence in the culture of public shaming, that it's particularly important to tell a story like this with all its nuances intact?
I think at the time, from what I understand, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that the press at least were not kind to Donald.
Oh, I think it was brutal.
Yeah.
So he was shamed, but I feel now there's something in our culture, times have changed, where when I heard about the story, my reaction, and I feel like most people's reactions are, my God, he's extraordinary that he dared to do such a thing and that he got so far. And there's much more empathy, I feel. There definitely is in our film, but I think in general that people have, I don't know, less. I know you want to talk about public shaming, but I think in relationship to this story, people admire his daring do, kind of dreaming, the fantasy that he had and how far he actually got. Don't you think?
Yes. Well, I felt enormous empathy and admiration for it, and obviously, if you want to communicate that, and I think it's easier for people to have less invested in their view when it's several decades later. But nevertheless, I didn't have to make an effort. I just thought the guy was remarkable. What I share with him are the mistakes he made. I think I'm capable of making all of those, really. Getting in over my head, making a wrong choice here, making a wrong choice there, misjudging the situation there, thinking that you can just go one more step and fix a problem and then getting in deeper. I know all about that. What I don't share is his navigational skills, his courage, his extraordinary ambition to fulfill a dream, the ability to sail 13,000 miles and be alone for 7 months. Couldn't do any of that. So the only things that I don't have in common with Donald Crowhurst are his talents and his skills.
Life must be lived. So the question becomes, what can you do to give it all meaning?